When you think of Ferrari, you picture fire-breathing beasts tearing up the racetracks, glossy red missiles zooming down the streets, and that iconic prancing horse basking in Formula One glory. What you don't picture is, well, the Ferrari Mondial. Yes, it's a real Ferrari, and yes, it's probably the one model Maranello wishes you'd quietly forget. Launched in 1980, with less bite than bark, the Mondial never quite lived up to the Ferrari hype. It was slower, tamer, and dare we say it, kinda boring. Despite being one of the brand's more affordable offerings, it never captured the hearts of purists. Over 6,000 were made, but even that commercial success couldn't save its rep. Ferrari tried to course correct, but the damage was done. So what went wrong? Let's dive into the story of the Mondial, the Ferrari no one really brags about. Now, if you're a die-hard gearhead, you probably know that some cars carry reputations so gnarly that even collectors approach them with caution. You see, the Ferrari Mondial is kind of like the oops baby in the Ferrari family. It arrived at the glamorous 1980 Geneva Motor Show, all dressed up and ready to shine. Designed by none other than Leonardo Fioravanti, you'd think this car was destined for greatness. But somewhere between the drawing board and the dealership floor, things went sideways. It was meant to be the successor to the 308 GT4 and predecessor to the sleek Ferrari California. It had the looks, well, sort of. The name, Mondial, taken from the French word for global, and even a gated manual transmission that usually gets Ferrari fans frothing at the mouth. But the reaction? Crickets. From the start, the Mondial was criticized for being underpowered, uninspiring, and let's just say it, not all that attractive. It was heavier and slower than other Ferraris of the time. And to make things worse, it cost more than the sharper, better-performing 308 GTB. Sure, Ferrari tried to make amends over its 13-year lifespan, producing more than 6,000 units with minor improvements here and there. But no matter what they did, the Mondial couldn't shake its reputation as the black sheep of Maranello. That said, it's not all bad. In fact, there's a small but vocal camp of enthusiasts who rally behind this misunderstood machine. Take John Pogson, for example. This Ferrari veteran, builder, racer, and collector stood up for the Mondial in a 2016 drive piece, calling it one of the coolest, most accessible Ferraris around. That's a bold claim, but not entirely off the mark. After all, the Mondial does have its charms. A mid-sized engine layout, seating for 4, and a glorious gated shifter that screams old school cool. Now let's talk about the specifications of this unloved car. When the Mondial debuted in 1980, it packed a 3.0-liter V8 engine pushing out 214 horsepower. Sure, that might not sound like much, especially next to the thunderous Ferraris of the 60s that were cranking over 300 horsepower like it was no big deal. But context is everything, folks. This was the era when automakers were wrestling with stricter emissions regulations and tighter safety standards. Everyone's performance numbers took a hit. Even the beloved 308 GTB, the car Mondial constantly gets compared to, was only a bit punchier at 237 horsepower. That's just a 23-horse gap, not exactly night and day. And get this, Mondial wasn't even the weakest Ferrari of its time. Enter the 208 GTB, introduced the same year, which rocked a 2.0-liter V8 with a sad little 153 horsepower. That's basically compact sedan territory. So if you think the Mondial was the runt of the Ferrari litter, think again. Let's not forget its Italian rivals either. Lamborghini's Urraco had a 247 horsepower from a 3.0-liter V8, and the Maserati Merrick SS barely squeaked past the Mondial at 217 horsepower with its V6. Even the Porsche 911s from the early 80s, unless you sprung for the turbo, weren't exactly outmuscling the Mondial. Top models had just about 201 horsepower. So why does Mondial get all the hate? Let's be honest, power and top speed are fun to brag about, but they mean squat if your car won't start on a Monday morning. Unfortunately for the Ferrari Mondial, it wasn't just a bit slow, it was also a bit of a diva when it came to reliability. One of its biggest troublemakers? The Bosch mechanical fuel injection system. It sounded fancy, but in practice, not so much. Since it was entirely mechanical, no helpful computers to smooth things out, it was notoriously complex and temperamental. Owners learned the hard way that quirky and Ferrari V8 don't always make for a happy garage. Between that and the usual Italian gremlins, many steered clear of the Mondial like it had the plague. So, to recap, it wasn't fast, it wasn't especially reliable, and it cost as much as other Ferraris that actually delivered thrills. Yikes, that combo pretty much guaranteed Mondial's bad rap. But here's the twist. That same reputation is exactly why it's become one of the cheapest ways to get into Ferrari ownership today. A classic Ferrari for under $30,000? Yes, you read that right. While the world watches the 250 GTO soar past $70 million, and the F40 and F50 keep climbing into collector stratosphere, the humble Mondial is chilling in the used market at a price tag not much higher than a loaded Honda Civic. Even the more desirable trims, like the Mondial T or the Cabriolets, rarely push past $40,000. For a Ferrari, that's practically pocket change. But here's where the Mondial gets the last laugh. Despite its flaws, it's actually kinda practical. It has 4 seats, yes, 4, decent comfort, and a layout that makes it a genuinely usable classic. It's not just a garage queen, it's a Ferrari you can actually drive without needing a chiropractor or a pit crew. Ironically, if this car had worn a Lancia badge, or even an Audi ring or two, people might have judged it less harshly. But because it dared to wear the prancing horse, expectations were sky high. Still, what once sank its reputation is now what makes it so attractive. It's an underappreciated, affordable classic wrapped in Ferrari flair. Not bad for the black sheep of Maranello. Say, if you've been enjoying this ride through the twists, turns, and surprising charm of the Ferrari Mondial, the black sheep of Maranello, don't hit the brakes just yet. Smash that subscribe button and drop a like. If you're into deep dives on misunderstood classics, undervalued gems, and the cars that dared to be different. We've got more coming your way, from forgotten Ferraris to unsung heroes of the supercar world. Now, let's give the Ferrari Mondial some credit where it's due, because, despite what the purists might say, this quirky prancing horse actually had a lot going for it. First off, it sold well, like really well. Ferrari moved around 6,800 Mondials during its 13-year run. That's nearly 3,000 more than the Ferrari GT4 it replaced. So while the elite circles of cars and culture may have snubbed it, regular folks who wanted a slice of that Italian luxury loved it. Why? Because Ferrari marketed the Mondial as something radical, a practical Ferrari. 4 seats, mid-engine V8, and daily drivable? That's not something you hear often, especially in the same sentence as Ferrari. And get this, the Mondial remains the last rear mid-engine Ferrari with 4 seats. It's in rarefied company alongside the GT4. Sure, the GT4 might be getting more love lately, especially the Dyno 208 variant, but the Mondial still holds its own in the collector world. Later Mondials shared bits with the Testarossa, which means replacement parts are easier to find than you'd think. That's a rare win in the exotic car game. Plus, for a classic Ferrari, they're not outrageously priced either. Sure, the Mondial still made that glorious V8 racket that probably didn't win you any neighborhood awards, but it was also comfy enough to road trip and had enough space in the back for the kids. Try doing that in an F40. At the end of the day, the Mondial might have been the oddball at the Ferrari family dinner, but it was the only one bringing something practical to the table. And in a world where most Ferraris are all about speed and sizzle, the Mondial was more about balance, and maybe that's exactly what made it so cool. So next time someone bashes the Mondial, remind them it wasn't the horsepower slouch it was made out to be. In the grand cars and culture conversation, it deserves a little redemption. After all, even Ferrari's flops are still Ferraris, and that's got to count for something. In conclusion, the Ferrari Mondial is more than just a misunderstood chapter in Maranello's legacy. It's a daring attempt to blend practicality with passion. While the purists scoffed at its softer edges and tame performance, the Mondial quietly carved out a space for itself as the most livable Ferrari of its time. 4 seats, a mid-mounted V8, and just enough of that Italian drama made it a hit with everyday buyers who craved the badge without the usual sacrifices. Sure, it had its quirks and reliability issues, polarizing looks, and a reputation it never quite shook, but underneath it all was a Ferrari that tried to do something different. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it so special. As cars and culture continue to embrace the underdogs and reframe automotive history, the Mondial deserves a second look, because not every Ferrari needs to be a track monster to be worthy of the prancing horse. If you enjoyed this joyride through the forgotten legacy of the Ferrari Mondial, its quirks, charm, and unsung place in Ferrari lore, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.